Okay, you have everything in abundance. You have everything now on the tap of your finger. So there is no problem for us. And therefore, that disconnect is reflecting into our ignorance. From a scientific way, I don't mean that they should know how to experiment and all those things, but they should know to question and ask a proper question. In my hometown, there is one temple, and on Saturday, it's Hanuman temple, and on Saturday, there was some beggars who were sitting there, and there were kids also who were sitting for begging during the afternoon. I very casually happened to ask those beggars, why are you not sending your kids to the schools? And the answer that I got was shocking. That person told me that these kids, they go to school, they come to beg during their recess time.
For me, environmental studies was always a paper that I could just write something and pass. And that is the mentality for more than 90% of the people I remember, 90% of the students I remember. Why does this, when do you think this compulsion becomes a burden, and what do you think could be done to alleviate these things?
This compulsion actually will not become a burden if it's a part of education system. The problem is we don't consider environmental education still as something which would build some values. So we have this urge to go to the nature, to go to the green areas, to go to the rivers, to go to the mountains. But our development and all these years of industrialization and everything made us think about going somewhere with a nice road, okay, and all those things. And that is basically reflected everywhere. There was an interesting paper that was published, actually wrote by Barack Obama. Many of the people might not know it, but when he retired from his position, he wrote this paper, and it was about the responsibility of the rich countries. But Barack Obama, in that paper, he tried to answer it in this way. He said that rich countries would always have a greater responsibility, in a sense. They can actually, like we discussed about the financial privileges to individuals, there is the same thing for the financial privileges to the countries. And he said that that particular country who is rich, they actually can think about the alternatives more easily.
That is what,
and implement it more easily, and can make it happen for developing countries also through giving them some funds to a certain extent. Of course, how environmental education subtly, actively would actually make the difference possible. After going out of this room, you are just throwing littering in the public and all those things you are doing, then I would not say that you are environmentally sensitized.
do we preach this or do we teach this?
Environmental education is considered as one of the part of the syllabus, and that needs to be mugged up and wrote in the exam. A kid, okay, is accepting whatever they have done. Okay, they should not be punished for that, because the next time they would fear to tell what they have done, and they would start hiding their mistakes. Cheating, benefited by cheating, is like cheating everywhere.
Welcome to the podcast series, and today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Nikhil Modak. Hi, Nikhil.
Hello.
So today we have a very common but interesting topic to talk about. Before I get into it, I just want to ask you this question. We have heard about this environmental education from a very young age. What are your perspectives about it? What do you consider as environmental education? And even we can well a little bit into the topic also. What do you think about the environmental education, at least in India, post-independence?
To answer your question, we can really start from what education is. And simply put, like Swami Vivekananda says, education is to make a better person out of whatever we have. If we put into environmental education, it is something like making a better person who is better aware about environment. And what do we mean by environment is not about some dense forest and grasslands and rivers and all those things. Those, of course, are part of the environment. But environment is also about what is around you. just in your backyard, whatever is there, are you also aware about that? The plants that are in your backyard, the birds that those visit to those plants, are you aware about them? And are you also aware about what your actions are doing to them? If we can make people aware through the education about their environment, that would serve the purpose of the environmental education. And the second part that you asked about is what is the condition of environmental education in India, and especially post-independence. I'll say not really good, not really bad. Why I'm saying that is because first to say not really good is because we have started imparting environmental education quite late now. After quite a lot of damage has already been done, and we will talk about what damage already was done. And not really bad is because we have at least started it. So we have our next generations to whom we can teach, whom we can make aware about the environment. And rather than teaching, I would say we can make them think about their surrounding, which is generally missing. Like say for example, even when we are at home, okay, for how much time do we really think about whatever is going on around us? Okay, but it's just the normal business that is going around us. The seasons change. Even we sometimes don't realize the changes in the season just change. Okay, so we need to make them aware about those changes also, because now the changes are also more distinct. Okay, we can see more hot days, we can see more different monsoon patterns and all those things. And this generation is the one which can really start looking at their surrounding and be aware about their surroundings, and keep it at least in the status quo, if not making it better.
Since you talked about the start of environmental education, like I just want to know, what was the precursor to our environmental education? Maybe we can go to the colonial eras or even pre-colonial eras. Like were we always in line with environmental education as our roots, our culture? Was it always in line with it, or was it something that gained popularity, that gained roots after post-independence?
Globally, if you see the different cultures, okay, especially the ancient cultures who had this polytheistic or oligotheistic worships and nature-based cultures and all those, the environment was always the part of those cultures. Okay, even when we started agriculture, even when we departed from our hunter-gatherer, what we can say, needs, we still were quite close to the nature. Our day-to-day life was very close to the nature. The water that was required for the agriculture, for drinking, it needs to be supplied from the rivers, and there was no municipal corporation which would throw some water into your taps and it will directly come to your tap. The closeness to the rivers, okay, the direct dependence on the rivers, the direct dependence on the forest for the resources, on the grasslands for the resources, on the soil for the better agricultural yield, always kept us very close to the nature. And speaking about India, our what we can say, all the literature, okay, the Sanskrit, Prakrit, and all the literature is stuffed with what we can say, the natural, what we can say, the awareness about the natural phenomenon, the geography around them. For example, take Ramayana. Okay, when Vishwamitra is taking Ram and Lakshman for their first what we can say expedition, kind of, they are continuously talking, and this storytelling was integral part of society and community. Even in our childhoods, storytelling from our grandparents was one of the part of educating us. So he is continuously telling them the stories of different sages, different areas, and all those things. And while telling those stories, he's also talking about the geographies of the area, where two different rivers meet. For example, there is one interesting question that was asked by Ram, although very basic question. They are traveling through Ganga, and they hear a sound, and then Ram asks Vishwamitra that what does this sound is coming from, and then Vishwamitra explains that these two rivers, they are coming together, and their water is colliding, and therefore this sound is coming up. Then Vishwamitra also tells him the fauna of Ganges, and you'll be surprised to find the names of Ganges dolphin, which is called as Shinshumar at the time. It is still called as Susumar in that particular area. And there are many other animals, those are mentioned, including birds and herpetofauna and some mammalian fauna and all those things. So that is one thing. And then you will also find that whenever they are leaving their camp, Vishwamitra always will bow down to the forest deities, demigods, and taking their permission and thanking them for protecting them throughout the night, and asking them a permission to go to the next destination, kind of a thing. So this kind of interaction was there because it was integral part, right? Because you were continuously in contact with the nature. Or even say, for example, while crossing the Ganges, Sita asks Ganga that I'll offer you something if we return safely. So again, the same thing, because crossing the river is a task, of course, because it's
So technically, conservation was an integral part as long as we were dependent on it for survival.
we were dependent, because say the thing is, as soon as we get disconnected, okay, say for example, when the water is there easily at our tap, okay, we don't have to go to rivers or walk 4 kilometers to the rivers, kind of a thing, and the water is purified. Even if it is polluted in the rivers, it is, or wherever it is the source, if it is polluted, it is still purified and comes to us. So we don't care about the pollution of those resources, okay, from where it is coming. So that disconnect, okay, really makes us ignorant about what is in our surrounding. So it is something like I call it as problem of abundance. Okay, you have everything in abundance. You have everything on your now on the tap of your finger. Okay, even if you want a water bottle, you can ask it on mobile. So there is no problem for us, and therefore that disconnect is reflecting into our ignorance, and therefore it becomes more and more important to make people aware through the environmental education, and especially at the foundation age, because that is the time when I have seen, say for example with my kid, that even when we don't tell them a few things, they just observe what we are doing, their teachers are doing, their friends are doing, and they will do it. For example, we never told her to drop the waste into a dustbin. She just observed us or her teachers, and she started doing it, or keeping it in her hand. So that those foundation years are very much important for such awareness to be inculcated, and also in a scientific way. From a scientific way, I don't mean that they should know how to experiment and all those things, but they should know to question and ask a proper question in some way. Even the stupid question, not a problem, because in that age you will not know how to form the question. But even that stupid question has to be compassionately dealt with and answered. And how much ever time, the kids generally tend to ask the same question 10, 20 times, even if they... So you have to compassionately and patiently keep on telling them the same thing, but try to make your own efforts. Of course, it's not like 100% results you will get. It's up to them what they will do. But my point is that is the age when you really can do it. So for example, many a times kids are dropped out from the schools for taking the responsibility of the family business. Sometimes very small a small business of making what we can say footwears or something kind of that, they will still be taken into, and they will be asked to do it. It was a very sad experience for me quite a few years back. In my hometown, there is one temple, and on Saturday, it's Hanuman temple, and on Saturday there was some beggars who were sitting there, and there were kids also who were sitting for begging during the afternoon. And I very casually happened to ask those beggars, why are you not sending your kids to the schools? And the answer that I got was shocking. That person told me that these kids, they go to school. They come to beg during their recess time. Those families which are deprived of, like you said, financial, what we can say, support, are pushed into doing all these things. So I agree. Scenario, it is very difficult for them to think about environment and all those things. But still, a better manner. For example, many of the slums are on the banks of some rivers or something kind of that. These communities are throwing the solid waste directly into those rivers. That is just adding into whatever we are doing.
But then again, they don't have the means to get rid of the waste.
Yeah, that is a different story. So those are like two different, what we can say, parts of the system. So the local governance also has to look into how to manage the waste and all those things from those areas. At the same time, the people has to be also made aware so that they can make a democratic pressure over the local administration.
That's true.
That there has to be a dustbin, there has to be a proper waste disposal system in those areas, so that the rivers or the water source around them, okay, or the soil even around them or around their community will not be spoiled. I know we are expecting too much, okay, even those people like us, okay, who are staying in lavish houses or privileged houses, or at least lower middle class houses, we still are lacking of any, what we can say, proper awareness about disposal of waste and all those things. So it is the entire, what we can say, societal responsibility of doing those things, and therefore this awareness is required. Okay, and it will ultimately boil down to what we can say, better surrounding, clear surrounding and clean surrounding and all those things. To think for those people about the environment, yes, it's a privilege that it's not possible for them, but making them aware and making them act on it in a very small ways is still possible.
What are the policy level changes that we have in order to enforce environmental stuff?
Firstly, the primary education itself, okay, became compulsory from 2009, that late. Like 1947 we got independence, and 2009 we really started compulsory education. Although the right to education was identified in 1976, okay, and so this entire exercise of making primary education compulsory came from that 1976 thirst that we need to make this thing as a fundamental right of the kids. And interestingly, if you note, this comes as a Article 21A under the Constitution, which is under Article 21, which is actually a right to life. Okay, so right to education for the kids was identified under the right to life, because education will basically build their life, build their future, everything. And therefore it is very important. Coming back to the environmental education or giving environmental education to the kids was kind of always there in the minds of our earlier generations, especially from 1964-66 we can say, because this Kothari Commission report which came in 1966, it particularly mentioned that along with the mainstream education there has to be a environmental education. Although it was not compulsory at the time, But slowly, environmental education kept on becoming a part of education system, whatever was there at the time. And in 2003, Supreme Court said that environmental education in all the education institutes has to be made mandatory, and therefore now it is mandatory to give education in all the education systems, except where the religious education is given. Otherwise, environmental education is compulsory. In what way, in what form, is again a different story, because how sincerely and seriously it is taken,
So
and how is it used.
exactly what you said. So when does this compulsion become a burden? Talking from my own personal example, even I had environmental studies while I was growing. For me, environmental studies was always a paper that I could just write something and pass. And that is the mentality for more than 90% of the people I know, 90% of the students I know. Why does this, when do you think this compulsion becomes a burden, and what do you think could be done to alleviate these things?
This compulsion actually will not become a burden if it's a part of education system. The problem is we don't consider environmental education still as something which would build in us some values. Okay, forget about environmental education. Even the value education is not considered as something
Just a
which
simple
would
paper to-
sometimes even not the paper, just to appear for some oral
Exactly.
oral exams or something like that. So what matters to us mostly is maths or science. Of course it matters because those are big subjects, but those big subjects are mark giving, and value education and environmental education will build you forever. Okay.
No, but I would say that putting environmental education in the same forte as maths is more important. Regarding this financial disparity, right? Like how it affects people, and how it makes environmental education towards the lower strata very hard. What do you what is that? That's a very weird thing.
Everyone's financial priorities would of course define what they first think about. Okay, and environmental education or the awareness about the environment would not really come as a first thing to the mind, even to us who have a very good financial condition.
So every time whenever you talk to someone about environmental conservation or preserving environment, everyone comes up with this why are you using cars? Don't use cars.
Yeah.
Why do you want to go? You can walk. Why are you using cars? Why are you using electricity? Etc. 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 So in a very broader sense, these are essentials, but some could be ticked off as a luxury.
Making people aware about environment, what I feel, is easy and difficult at the same time. Why I'm saying difficult is because there's this Sanskrit saying is Ati Parichaya Avadnya. So Ati Parichaya Avadnya means all this surrounding is so familiar to us that we just are ignorant about its presence. It's there. Okay, the river is there, the forest is there, and all those things. The problem is, and when it becomes easier to make people aware about the environment, is when it matters to them. Okay, until and unless it will matter to them, it is not at all easy to make them aware about the environment. Otherwise, people, even now, if you ask someone to stand for the environmental cause, they will just do it for the status quo.
Exactly.
Or the status cause or something like that, or the upper society flaunting kind of a thing.
A fad. They just
A fad kind of a thing. They will. Yeah, I might be very casually and generically blaming people, but that is what I have experienced. Very few people really have been affected by that blow of not having something around them. Okay.
When does this awaken? Is it something that we have innate? Like the feeling to conserve environment, is it innate? We keep on feeling like I will act when I get the chance to act, or is it something that triggers, it turns on the switch when where you feel like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead, I just start conserving the environment?
No, I personally feel that it's an individual experience. So generally, when we ask this question that how the environmental education should be, and how difficult is it to educate people for the environment, again I would say it is easy and difficult. In a sense, there is also passive education and there is an active education. So for example, in the childhood, or the childhood memories that we cherish the most, if you very keenly look at them, those are always some memories near the nature, in the green areas where you had went with your friends or your family or something like that, and that passively will impact you. Okay, the rivers, the clean rivers that you see, the mountains that you see, the green areas that you see, this doesn't require environmental education. Okay, it's just the
Trigger is a very
trigger.
personal thing. Yeah.
Okay, and because we are animals, okay, basically,
We boil down to our roots.
yeah, we boil down to our roots. Okay, although, say for example, we would dream. So there is this book, The Great Derangement. I read one very interesting paragraph in that. I don't remember it verbatim, but it had a very beautiful line. Is that we dream about going to the green areas on the black tar road. That is the problem. Okay, so we have this urge to go to the nature, to go to the green areas, to go to the rivers, to go to the mountains, but our development and all these years of industrialization and everything made us think about going somewhere with a nice road, okay, and all those things, and that is basically reflected everywhere. Therefore, I said that educating people for the environment is not that difficult, but it's also not that easy. Day by day, we are also losing the green areas. So where are our kids? Where will our kids go to see the clean river, to see the green area, to see the park at least? There are no parks. That is the basic need. And if you want to have that passive education to be a part of their lifetime experience, then there is active part of it, that the local governance or the government on a larger scale has to implement the policies to maintain the green areas, parks. There was an interesting paper that was published, actually wrote by Barack Obama. Many of the people might not know it, but when he retired from his position, from his second term, and the final times from his presidency of US, he wrote this paper, and it was about the responsibility of the rich countries. But Barack Obama, in that paper, he tried to answer it in this way. He said that rich countries would always have a greater responsibility, in a sense. They can actually, like we discussed about the financial privileges to individuals, there is the same thing for the financial privileges to the countries. And he said that that particular country who is rich, they actually can think about the alternatives
Exactly.
more easily,
So that is what,
and implement it more easily, and can make it happen for developing countries also, through giving them some funds to a certain extent, of course. Like there is one success story that we know of, curbing down on the chlorofluorocarbons.
right.
Okay, we absolutely don't have anything now, and how were we successful? Actually, if we look into it, there was very little campaign around it, right? Although it was part and parcel of our environmental education syllabus, CXCA and all those things, if you remember.
Like, I would say that Even I got sensitized towards it.
Yeah.
Like even at a very young age, even when
Exactly.
I didn't know what CFCs were.
Yeah.
But I knew that the CFCs or chlorofluorocarbons were something that was detrimental towards the environment.
Exactly. We can't see CFC.
And apart from refrigerators, a common layman coming across it is like, even with the refrigerator in his house, as long as he or she is not sensitized to it, nobody knows
Exactly.
there or not. Yeah.
Exactly. And still, even if people are sensitized to it, they cannot really stop on using the refrigerators or air conditions. Okay, but they can stop on using the gas containers for perfumes and all those, and use some alternative. How environmental education subtly, actively would actually make the difference possible. Parents themselves teaching, the teachers themselves teaching their kids how to behave outside and how to behave with the nature, how to respect the nature and all those things. Not all the parents would have privilege to take their kids to green places, to picnics and all those things. But still, there would be an opportunity where they would small sensitization is still possible due to various reasons. Storytelling, the poetry recitation and all those things at home have almost stopped. Okay, both the parents are working and it becomes difficult for them to spend their time with the kids and all those things.
Is environmental studies actually a black or is it black or white, or is it a gray area? Is there any gray area?
Yeah, because the same thing that we discussed about the disconnect. Okay, so that's why people don't realize that what harm they are making to themselves by harming their surroundings and the environment as a whole.
Even our so-called eco resorts, they have this very huge areas with air conditions, swimming pools and whatnot.
People don't want to leave their comfort zone.
Right? Like the guilty pleasures that they have, they don't want to leave those. Either you are environmentally aware about what is happening, you're aware about your environment per se, and then the other group who are not aware about the environment.
The sensitization towards the environment is a continuous process, and it's a dynamic process. Dynamic because in the space and time, I mean, it depends on the locality, the country, and also the time in which we are currently or our future generations would be. The priorities will change. Expectations from the people, would obviously change. And therefore, this process is a continuous and a dynamic process. And therefore, there cannot be one point where you would draw a line, realize at least the bare minimum requirement. Okay. So for example, you are just talking about environment conservation and all those things, and after going out of this room, you are just throwing littering in the public and all those things you are doing. Then I would not say that you are environmentally sensitized. Bare minimum requirement that needs to be fulfilled. Okay, as being sensitized human being.
Do we preach this or do we teach this? Why does such a beautiful or such an important topic, such an important sense of knowledge has come down to a very meager preach?
Yeah, because the preachy thing is funny is because environmental education is considered as one of the part of the syllabus, and that needs to be mugged up and wrote in the exam. Okay, and the grades have to be gained, and therefore it is just preached and told that just by heart those things, and therefore this preachy thing comes in from a different perspective. The environmental education does not really need to be preachy.
Exactly.
Okay, schools regularly taking their kids, outside, on picnic, not necessarily to green area, but wherever they go. Making them aware about where to put the waste, how to behave with other human beings, how to behave with the animals, what they see. Even if they are going to the zoo, not feeding to the animals in the zoo, all those things would without being preachy, will sensitize kids.
Apart from preaching, the kids should not be penalized also.
Yeah.
Even for the grains, for that matter.
Yeah.
Even for a kid litters. What is the ultimate thing the kid fears? Littering is bad.
Whenever a kid, okay, is accepting whatever they have done, okay, they should not be punished for that, because the next time they would fear
Exactly.
to tell what they have done, and they would start hiding their mistakes.
Hypothetically, there's a mining company and they have crossed the limit of mining and they still want to continue. What do they do? There is a penalization.
Yeah, of course.
But what do they do? Like, this penalization becomes a bribery. Where they feel that as long as I have the money to give, I can utilize more of it.
Now I don't know what is current scenario, but industries are generally compelled to create the social forest for whatever green area they have cleared for the building of industry and establishment and all those things. Now, after creating that social forest, okay, first thing is how that is created and how much that is created. No one looks into.
Exactly.
Okay, and just the bribery works and they do it.
I have done something.
Yeah, I have done something. Then, after having that social forest, other what we can say restrictions are also loosened up, so that they can now release the wastewater easily. The system, okay, which is what we can say keeping an eye on all these things, okay, has to be what we can say has to work honestly. Cheating, benefited by cheating is like cheating everywhere. So it's something like in the game theory there is this concept of penalty for cheating, okay, but at the same time, if the cheating becomes a norm, okay, then the honesty doesn't remain a norm.
No.
Okay, and therefore the cheating has to be treated honestly as a cheating every time,
Whatever the scenario.
whatever the scenario is, and the penalty.
Yes, it has to be treated.
Yes, yes, and then only the cheating would be continuously penalized, and then only the honesty would overpower the cheating.
Coming to the end of the podcast, it was a very nice discussion we had. I think we were talking about what is the need for environmental education within the primary level, and how environmental education or sensitization of environment varies from different strata to strata of people, financially at least, and what is the disparity that occurs in between. That is a question. That is a question for another time where we can actually have a good discussion about it. And apart from that, the whole concept of why environmental education is important and how it has changed, and what are the concept of environmental education, how it changed across time, and where we are in the current scenario and situation. We scratched the surface of what it is, and it was a nice time spending talking with you.
Thank you, Flying Hornbill, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, Bhaskar.
Thank you, sir.